Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is January 1st. Happy New Year's to everybody out there across the Pacific Northwest here. Taking a look here at the infrared satellite imagery, and we can see the Gulf of Alaska is active right now. We're going to continue to bring storm systems towards the west coast of North America here, and we'll check out what kind of impacts we can expect over the next 10 days or so. If you take a look south, you can see that storm that impacted portions of California down there, brought San Francisco their second rainiest 24-hour period ever, but there's going to be more systems on their way, including here for the Pacific Northwest. We'll take a look at those here in a moment. Now, looking at the windy map here, you can see the frontal system offshore. Here you can see these little embedded mesolows along that frontal system there, and you can see the cyclonic flow around that storm system still moving through California, Nevada, down through the southwest here. But we're getting a break here across much of the Pacific Northwest today, a much needed break here. It's not bad to have a few days off here as far as weather goes, because we're going to bring some precipitation back across the area here, and a stronger system is going to set up here off the Pacific Ocean here as we go on into mid and later this week. We'll take a look at that big low pressure center here in a moment as well. This is Portland down there, wrap up of the year. You can see January, it had some snow, wind, rain, floods. Remember the very cold spring we had this year, and then the heat wave we had during the summertime, a couple of tornadoes in October. We had the forest fires and the east winds, and of course, everybody remembers the Christmas week stuff that just happened. But nice weather roundup there from Portland National Weather Service. This is for Spokane. I'll show you how to click on these individual offices here in a moment also, but you can see the warmest day, coldest day, then the wettest 24 hours, snowiest day out there. Nice roundup here from the National Weather Service Spokane as well. Look at that 59-mile-per-hour gust there on April 4th. So here we're looking at the Aviation Weather Center. You can see all the National Weather Service forecast offices across the country shown here. If you click on each individual one of these, it gives any aviator that might want them a forecast. You can click on Boise, for example, Pendleton, Spokane. So great tool here for aviators, but it also shows us which National Weather Service office covers which locations here. You can see Pendleton and Portland extend on into Washington here. Medford extends down into Northern California. Boise does both Oregon and Idaho. Spokane does some of Washington, Idaho, Missoula, does Idaho, Montana there. So it's not just state by state here. You can see which areas these cover here. So a great tool here for aviators. Now, this is for British Columbia as well. This is the government of Canada. You can click on this map here and get localized forecast information here across British Columbia here for my people watching up there. If you didn't know about this, it's a good site to visit here. This is a little bit closer look at the National Weather Service offices here. And if you click on each individual one, it gives you the public forecast here. So you can see the map with some warnings and advisories. You want to click on Boise, you can, then just click back out of that. But you can see that here. So Pendleton, again, does cover up into Washington here. It might seem kind of counterintuitive that it covers the east slopes of the Cascades and not Spokane, but it does. That's how they have it lined out here. And you can see this. If you're traveling across the country here, you can kind of click on any one of these areas, see how the weather is going to be as you go out to those individual locations here. So nice tool there. Highly recommend using that. Now taking a look here, this is the 10-day precipitation deficit here. Looks like the Europeans saying we're going to be a little bit below average here across Pacific Northwest. I'm not quite buying it just yet, but it looks like some of these frontal systems are going to be pretty weak moving in here while California gets a lot of the action. But then this big low is going to develop up the coastline here. It's going to spread some moisture up the coastal regions of the Pacific Northwest as we go through later this week coming up. We'll take a look at those details here in a moment, but it's a little bit at odds with what the National Weather Service is calling for in the 6 to 10 day, where it does show above average precipitation across the Pacific Northwest. Now this is looking at 500 millibars, 18,000 feet, European on the left, GFS on the right. There's Alaska, BC, Washington, Oregon. Put this into motion and you can see that storm system impacted California there. Another one on the heels of that going through Northern California, Southern Oregon. That's going to bring some snowfall across some of the Southern Cascades and the Siskiyous here as we go through Monday night into Tuesday morning. Now you can see another system kind of moves up the coast and dies off the coast of BC shown there. But look at this big low pressure system. Good model agreement here. High confidence in this storm's development. It's going to cast a real powerful cold front across California and bring some potential strong winds to the coastlines of the Pacific Northwest and maybe even some east winds through the gap areas like the Stampede Gap and the Gorge, depending on how strong this low pressure system ends up being. But now as we move into the future a little bit more, you'll see the troughing remain active and continue to bring storm systems towards the west coast here, and then going on through later and through the 10-day period, the Gulf of Alaska troughing still quite active here. So we're probably going to still be dealing with some storm systems out here for the next 10 days here with no signs of slowing down here across the Gulf of Alaska. The strength of these storm systems and how progressive they are is another question. Now, taking a look here, we're looking at wind speeds here, 100-meter wind speeds on the European. There's that weak frontal system coming that's going to impact us on through Monday morning. It's not going to bring much precipitation inland to the Willamette Valley or the Cascades or the Puget Sound area here, as it's kind of a dying front. But then if we go on into the future a little bit more, you'll clearly see this monster storm. High confidence in this storm's arrival here, and you can see kind of the easterly component here to the winds. It could bring some strong winds through the gorge. The Stampede Gap here is offshore winds are going to be roaring as we go on in through Wednesday across Pacific Northwest here, and this is the one that's going to bring another very strong storm down through California as well. Now, taking a look here, this is across the Pacific Ocean. Look at this. Here's Japan, there's Alaska, there's Washington, Oregon, California, way off to the right here. Now put that into motion, you can see this jet stream just purely aimed at the west coast of North America here and just continues on through the 10-day period here. This is actually 90 hours out, but trust me, it goes out through the 10-day period and the Gulf of Alaska trough stays active. We can clearly see this troughing here at 39,000 feet or 200 millibars here. It's going to define that huge low pressure system off the coast of North America here. This would be Wednesday afternoon shown. Now, I wanted to show you guys this too. We've been talking about the wave heights coming up here during the week, but you'll clearly see the huge low pressure system going on here. Look at some of these waves, 88-foot maximum individual wave height out there. And, you know, I don't know if anybody's out there trying to sail to Hawaii at this time of year, but probably not a good idea. Then you can see these really impact much of the west coast here, all the way from Vancouver Island, all the way down through Southern California. Big waves coming with this system, not to mention the winds and the flooding, big mountain snow, especially down through California here, as we go on in through Thursday and Friday shown, and then potential some more wave action going on for the Oregon, Washington coast. So it should be some good wave watching here over the next week or so here across Pacific Northwest down through California as well. Now, a little fantasy windstorm hunt. You can see that as we go through Thursday into Friday, there are some bigger, wind speeds as we go here, but it's just a smattering right now. And you look out at the extended, and just a few, not too bad right now. We'll keep watching it as it goes. I watch this all the time. I'd only show you guys once in a while just because it is a fantasy windstorm hunt. Nothing big looming on the horizon right now. This is Southwest Regional Airport here. Oregon Regional Airport, you can see that does exist for some strong winds with that big low pressure center off the coastline there. Could get some gusts up over 50 miles per hour. Continue to watch that here and see how that storm comes in. Slight differences in the track of that storm along the west coast of North America and have huge impacts on the coastal regions. And you can see as you go out into the future a little bit more some fantasy windstorms showing up there down across the southwest Oregon coast. This is that 6 to 10 day precipitation out like I talked about. You can see California clearly bullseyed here, but it still shows the National Weather Service still shows Pacific Northwest being above average here, even though the European had that deficit across some of the Cascades up through British Columbia. But we'll see how that turns out. We'll continue to watch that as we go day by day. This is the Pacific North American Oscillation, kind of dead even here, showing up on the European run. They may be starting to trail off here as we go towards later on into January, mid portion of January here. But what does that mean? So this would be negative territory here where the trough is over the top of us. We have this north and northwest flow just off the coastline here, keeping us cooler across Pacific Northwest. That's what I mean when we're going into negative territory here in the Pacific North American Oscillation, defined by the big high out over the Pacific Ocean and the Aleutian Islands here, allowing that north flow across the region. This is what it looks like when it's positive here. The low pressure is out here, and this does not preclude us from getting storms. The big low pressure systems out here can spawn and even bring windstorms and whatnot across Pacific Northwest here too. So just because you're in one phase or another does not mean you can't see active weather, but you can see the difference in the ridge versus trough position based on Pacific North American negative or positive situations. And wrapping up here, just a heads up across the region here. If you guys are out, you got the day off, just watch out for the avalanche danger across the Cascades, as always, during the winter season here, and considerable across some of the west slopes of the North Cascades there as well. So anyway, yeah, storm train's going to continue on here. California is going to get probably the best of it here over the next few days here, including a very strong storm that's going to move through as we go through midweek here. Now, yeah, so the Gulf of Alaska trough is going to remain active, and so this could change how these storms interact with the Pacific Northwest. But right now, it doesn't look like any huge windstorms on our doorstep yet. Maybe along the coastline, though, coming up midweek, depending on where that low pressure sets up, as we talked about. But anyway, we'll do this again tomorrow. Happy New Year to everybody out there. It was a good year. I got a little bit better, I think, at doing these videos overall. and my setup is definitely a little bit better. I hope my audio is better versus last year at the same time. I'll continue to try to improve, and when things calm down, I'll do a few more educational videos, and I'll continue on my windstorm series. I've been working on that still piece by piece, so that will be coming out more and more as we go. I'm also going to do a greatest Arctic outbreak series here across Pacific Northwest, and we'll dive into that one as well. And yeah, so anyway, we'll do this again tomorrow. We'll check all the new model runs out, and I'll talk to you guys then.